In this lesson, we'll begin the process of painting our avatar by applying some base colors that we'll sample from our photo reference. So let's go ahead and dive back in. So in the previous lesson, we began applying our line work onto our sketch layer of our 2D avatar. And we discussed the importance of maintaining our line work and how it will read visually at a smaller size, things like the thickness and line weight of our line work. So with that said, let's go ahead and just see how that all registers visually, and we're just going to zoom out a couple times. And it's looking really good. We don't have any areas where we feel like the lines are becoming too muddled or running into each other and just really appearing confusing or muddy. So now we're ready to begin adding some color and begin painting our avatar. So let's go ahead and zoom back in here. Now there are a number of ways you could go about painting your avatar. You could start off in grayscale, adding some just base values and building up your values from just in grayscale and then begin coloring. We're going to go ahead and dive right into color, and we're going to begin by adding just some base colors. Now, one way that we could do this is by actually sampling directly from our photo reference over here. Since we do have a reference, this may allow us an opportunity to be a little more accurate when painting this avatar by sampling directly from this photo. So what we'd like to do first is just making sure we click on our tab up here for the window containing our photo. And I'm just looking at this, and before we even think about sampling, let's go ahead and maybe simplify this photo as a whole to really narrow down what are some of the key colors or base colors that we need to grab. So with that said, let's go up here to Filter, and we're going to go down to where it says Blur, and then we're going to go to Smart Blur. So this is going to bring up some settings here in our Smart Blur dialog box that we can control to really just simplify this image as a whole. Now I may want to go ahead and zoom out just once there, just so I can see that head completely in the preview window. And let's go ahead and just try and simplify this. I may want to start with the radius, and I'm just going to bring it up some, just a little. And let's try and see what we can do with the threshold. So you'll notice how the face is just becoming a little more simplified. Some of those details are being lost. Now there's no magic specific combination of numbers. It ultimately depends on the overall resolution of the image you're working with. So I'm just kind of adjusting this, and I'm starting to see just some more simplification happening here in the face, which is great because we want to sample from some specific areas when applying our base colors. So that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and click OK. And we can see how our image has changed over here to the screen left. And I'm going to go ahead and go to my tool panel, grab my brush tool, and I'm going to want to go ahead and change my brush tip settings. So I'm going to go to my brush panel, and this time I'm going to turn off transfer. So I'm just going to check that box, uncheck it next to transfer. And we can go ahead and leave shape dynamics on with pin pressure set. Basically, I'm doing this because I don't really need the ability to control my opacity and flow. I just want to apply just some flat, solid color to my image. So with that said, let's go ahead and click on our tab here, make sure we're working on our canvas. And you'll notice that I added a layer over here in my layers panel called, I've titled it BG or background. Let's go ahead and turn the visibility on for that. And I basically just filled that with kind of a medium gray value. This is just going to allow me to focus on my base colors a little more clearly as I'm applying them. I usually don't like to begin painting with just a white canvas as a background. So that's something you may want to try. Now we're going to want to make actually a new layer over here in our layers panel. And we're going to want to title this layer, and we'll just call it color block, because we're just going to be blocking in these colors. And so making sure that layer is selected, let's go over here to our reference photo, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit Alt while I'm still on my brush tool, and this is going to allow me to use the eyedropper tool so we can just sample from different areas. So I'm noticing that there's a pretty consistent color right up here on the forehead and really in different areas throughout the head. So I may just want to sample from somewhere up there, and we'll use that color as kind of our base color starting out on the head here. So I'm just going in and filling in this base color. I may want to increase my brush size just a little bit. I'm just right-clicking on the canvas and bringing up my brush tip picker there. Now don't worry about it being absolutely perfect or staying within the confines of your line work. You can always come back and clean that up later on. So the base color that I've selected, it's kind of a lighter color. And I'm kind of approaching this kind of like I would if I were doing a watercolor painting. With watercolor, it's really necessary to start out working light and build up from that. Start adding in darker values from that. You can't really go in reverse. Now this is just one way of doing it. I mean, we could approach it a number of ways, but you may find this process useful. So we've got all of our skin base color blocked in. Let's go ahead and sample some for the hair. So just going back over here to my reference image, I'm just going to sample for probably a lighter area over here in his hair. And going back to my image over here, we'll just go ahead and fill in the entire hair area. And again, I turned off my pressure sensitivity for opacity and flow in my brush panel because I don't really need to control that right now. I just want to apply these base colors, just solid flat color. So we're just going around. I'm not going to worry too much about it being absolutely perfect. I can always come around later on and just clean that all up. So we're just fleshing out, filling in all this color for his hair. And again, this is kind of a medium to dark color. It's not super dark. We're going to build up those darker values later on in his hair. And we may want to just go ahead and use this same color for the eyebrows. I think that would be suitable. So I'm just zooming in here. May want to reduce the size of my brush just a little. And I'm just coming in here and filling in these eyebrows. Very good. Let's go ahead and fill in the eyes as well. And I may want to go ahead and sample from over here again on my reference photo. His eyes are kind of dark, so we'll kind of start out with a darker color there. They're pretty dark to begin with. And for the whites of the eyes, we'll just start out at white. Now, if you look in the reference photo, if you really look at those eyes, they're not completely white around in these areas over here. If you really look at it just by themselves, they're kind of a gray. Now, for the avatar, again, as I've mentioned in previous lessons, we're trying to think what reads well at a small size. So we may want to think about the whites of the eyes as we move forward later on and how well they read at a small size. So just zooming out here, everything's looking good thus far. Let's go ahead and block in some color for this lip and mouth area. So just come over here and sample from our reference photo. And I think we've got a good base color here for the lips. So again, having these base colors is just going to allow us to really have a nice foundation for when we begin building up a lot of contrast, adding in shadows, just building up our colors and values later on. This just gives us a nice starting point. Let's go ahead and work in the teeth here, just adding some white for that. And we may want to sample for the tongue as well. So since we've been working from a photo reference, again, just being able to, this kind of gives us a jump start, just sampling directly from the photo without us having to really think about or make a lot of guessing and applying these colors. So I'm just adding white for the shirt. Again, this is another reason why I created that background with kind of a medium gray value. This way I can be pretty certain that I'm filling in this area completely with white. Whereas if I uncheck the visibility of my background layer, it kind of really becomes confusing what areas I'm painting that white in. And we don't want to rely on our default background layer for any kind of white values. That can really trip us up later on, especially when we're ready to isolate the avatar by itself, ready to finish it up. If we take away that white background, we're going to see a lot of little gaps here and there. So I try not to rely on that white background at all when I'm painting. Alrighty. Well, I think we're at a good stopping point. We've got our base colors added in for our 2D avatar. In the next lesson, we'll start building up our colors and values and start fleshing out and painting our avatar. So we'll see you then.